What if the moment you let go was the very moment she started to lose hers? What if your silence hit harder than your affection ever did? What if everything you gave her, the texts, the effort, the devotion, wasn't what kept her close, but what made her drift away? Here's the part no one tells you. Chasing doesn't build desire, it kills it. The more you give without pause, the less mystery you leave. And without mystery, there is no magnetism. There was a time you were everywhere in her life. Quick replies, last-minute plans, holding space for her every mood swing. But somewhere in the middle of all that giving, you disappeared, not from her sight, but from yourself. And the moment you stopped showing up with that same predictable energy, she noticed. Not immediately, but in the silence, something shifted. It's not anger, it's not bitterness, it's clarity. You weren't born to orbit her moods. You weren't made to chase approval. You were made to lead. And the second you remembered that, the game flipped. She felt the pull of your absence like gravity, not because you slammed the door, but because you stopped knocking. You stopped explaining, stopped performing, stopped proving. And that's when she started to spiral, not because you played a game, but because you stopped playing hers. This is the quiet power of a man who's recentered his purpose. This is the shift from being reactive to becoming unshakable. If you're ready to stop chasing ghosts and start rising into the man you were meant to be, hit that like button, subscribe to the Stoic Spirit, and comment below. I own my silence. I don't explain it. Number 1. The fall. There was a time you gave her everything. Not just your time, you gave her your energy, your focus, your presence. You made her the center of your world, while she made you an option in hers. You adjusted your schedule for her, dropped your plans to answer her calls, softened your edges just to keep the peace. You thought love meant sacrifice. You thought that if you showed up enough, she'd finally see your worth. But instead of pulling her closer, you pushed her away. The more you gave, the less she respected you. The more available you were, the less visible you became. Here's the bitter truth. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because you stopped being you. You forgot the man you were before her, the man with purpose, with direction, with fire in his chest. You stopped leading, stopped building, stopped choosing yourself. You started orbiting her, and in doing so, you abandoned your own gravity. You became soft in a way that felt needy, not open. You gave up your edge, your focus, your challenge, and whether she said it or not, she felt it. Women don't respect what clings. They respect what stands firm. You thought love was about holding on, but real love never costs you your backbone. That's when the fall began. You were no longer the man she admired. You became the man she could predict. And predictability kills attraction. She didn't walk away because you were weak. She walked away because you let her lead. You let your emotion decide for you. You over-explained, over-apologized, over-gave, and eventually, she did what nature always does. When something collapses under imbalance, she left. But here's what makes this fall beautiful, because it is beautiful. It stripped away the illusion. It burned the old self to ash. It reminded you that giving your all to someone who only gives when it's easy, that's not love. That's abandonment of self. And in that fire, a new man begins to rise. Not the one who chases, not the one who pleads, but the one who remembers his power, the one who builds in silence, who moves with purpose, who speaks less, but means more. He's not led by emotion. He's anchored in discipline. He no longer lowers his standards to be loved. He raises his standards and lets love catch up. That man doesn't chase, he attracts. And the moment you become that man, you realize the fall was never the end. It was your beginning. Number 2, the silence. There's a moment every man reaches. The moment when you finally stop talking. You stop writing novels in her inbox. You stop replaying what you should have said. You stop trying to explain your heart to someone who already decided it didn't matter. And that moment, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, painfully quiet. You're not being cruel, you're not seeking revenge, you're simply done offering your soul to someone who left it unread. Because here's what most men don't realize. The more you explain, the less she hears you. The more you chase, the faster she runs. She won't respect your words. Once she's lost respect for your silence, so you go still. Not because you're weak, but because you've discovered strength in saying nothing at all. In Stoicism, silence isn't passive. It's power under control. It's restraint with intention, and it changes everything. Because when you stop giving her emotional access, you shift the entire balance. Suddenly, she starts to wonder, why the silence? Why did the messages stop? Why aren't you reacting? That stillness becomes louder than any paragraph you ever sent. And for the first time, she feels the emptiness she created. See, women expect you to fold, to chase, to explain, to beg, but you don't fold anymore. You're not chasing closure. You're not trying to fix what broke you. You're building, quietly, relentlessly, with discipline. You're not who she left behind. You're evolving without needing to announce it. And when she notices, when she realizes you're no longer the man who explained everything away, that's when regret begins to echo in her mind. Not because you begged, but because you vanished. Let her feel your absence. Let her sit in the silence. And remember, you don't owe anyone a speech to prove your worth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Number 3, the mirror. She didn't fall in love with the man who dropped everything for her. Not the guy who rushed to reply. Not the one who rearranged his life to fit into hers. Not the man who gave up his edge just to keep her happy. She didn't fall for the version of you that asked, "What's wrong?" every hour, or tried to fix every storm in her world. She fell for the man you were before all of that. The man who had direction, presence, standards. The one whose silence spoke louder than neediness. You had purpose in your eyes. You had drive in your voice. You didn't need her to validate your worth. And that's what made you magnetic. But then you changed. You softened to keep the peace. You shrank to fit her mood. You abandoned the fire just to stay in her orbit. And in doing so, you faded. Not because you were weak, but because you tried to become what you thought she wanted. And here's the twist. She didn't want that. She wanted the gravity, the grounded energy, the man who made her rise just to reach him. But when you lowered yourself to stay close, you lost the tension that created the spark. Stoicism teaches us, you are not your emotions, you are your choices. And in the face of heartbreak, those choices define everything. So now you're standing in the ashes, and you have a choice. Stay there or rebuild. But this time, you don't rebuild the man you were. You go beyond him. You sharpen your vision. You build in silence. You return to discipline, not to win her back, but to remember who you are. You stop becoming the mirror that reflects what she wants. You become the flame that burns quietly on its own. And one day, she will see it. She'll scroll past you on a screen or hear your name in a conversation, and she won't recognize you because the man you've become is no longer within her reach. Not because you're hiding, but because you've grown too far. And that's when it hits her. Not regret for losing you, but awe for never truly knowing you. Number 4, the shift. There comes a point when you realize you were never in a relationship. You were in a rescue mission. She didn't want a partner. She wanted an outlet. And you, thinking love meant being her rock, tried to carry storms that weren't yours to weather. She broke down. You lifted her up. She blamed others. You defended her. She blamed you. And you still stayed. Because somewhere inside, you believed that staying through her chaos was how a real man proved his worth. But what you really proved was that you had no boundaries. You weren't her man. You became her bandage, her escape, her emotional sponge, and worst of all, she didn't admire it. She didn't even appreciate it, because women don't respect the man who gives up his peace to manage her pain. They respect the man who refuses to drown in someone else's storm. Stoicism teaches this clearly. Compassion is noble, but without limits. It turns into self-erasure. You're not cold for stepping back. You're clear that her emotions are not your job to manage. Clear that you weren't built to be the solution to someone else's self-inflicted wounds. You're not her healer. You're not her cushion. You're not her safety net. You are a man with a mission, and that mission requires your full presence. The shift happens when you stop apologizing for protecting your peace, when you stop saying yes to emotional weight that was never yours to carry. You stop over-explaining. You stop absorbing guilt for things you didn't cause. And in that stillness, your energy changes. She won't hear your reassurances anymore. She won't feel your constant emotional labor. And that silence, it will speak volumes. She'll feel the gap. She'll notice the absence. And for the first time, she'll be forced to sit with herself without you buffering the blows. Because you were never the cure. You were just the distraction from the real healing she avoided. Number 5, the replacement. She used to know everything about you. Where you were, who you were with, what you were feeling, because you made sure she knew. You posted the hints. You left the doors open. You gave her access, even after she walked away. Why? Because part of you still wanted her to notice, still hoped she'd come back, still believed that if you stayed visible, you'd stay valuable. But visibility doesn't mean value. It means predictability. And once you became predictable, you lost the tension. You lost the mystery. You thought consistency would show loyalty, but to her, it became background noise. She stopped respecting your presence because she assumed it would always be there. That's when everything begins to shift. You stop explaining. You stop signaling. You stop showing up in her digital world like you're still part of it. No more quotes aimed at her. No more reactive likes or views. No more emotional breadcrumbs. You vanish, not to punish her, but to protect your momentum. This is the difference between a man who reacts and a man who rebuilds. Because a Stoic man doesn't make noise. He moves in silence. Evolves relentlessly. And when that evolution begins, so does her confusion. She starts to wonder, why is he so quiet? Why can't I feel his energy anymore? Why does it seem like he's moved on? For real, that silence becomes louder than any words. Her imagination kicks in, fast, wild, and brutal. What if he's met someone else? What if he's building without me? What if he became everything I said I wanted? But now it's for someone else. But you don't answer, because now you don't exist for her approval. You've cut the emotional feed. You've become a mystery she doesn't have the key to anymore. And here's the truth. The replacement was never another woman. It was purpose. It was clarity. It was the version of you that you abandoned to make space for her. Now, you've reclaimed him. You've rebuilt yourself. And she's no longer part of the blueprint. Not because you're avoiding her, but because you've outgrown her. The man she once took for granted has risen beyond recognition. And this time, you're not coming back. Number 6. The shadow. Rejection hits like a punch to the chest. You weren't ready. She vanished, cold, fast, final. No explanation, no closure, just silence. And in that silence, you broke, not because she left, but because you stayed, stuck in the loop, replaying moments you can't rewrite. You questioned your worth, wondered what you lacked, tried to fix something that was never yours to fix. But here's the truth. Most men avoid. Her rejection wasn't your ruin. It was your reveal. It showed you what you've been tolerating, how much you were giving, for so little in return. It cracked the illusion wide open, not just about her, but about yourself. And now you're standing in that shadow. But that shadow isn't death. It's direction. Pain isn't your enemy. It's your raw material. Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny it. It asks you to use it. Turn heartbreak into heat. Turn chaos into clarity. Let her absence become the weight that forges your strength. Let her silence become the space where your mission grows. You stop chasing closure. You start building muscle, building discipline, building silence. And soon, you stop hoping she'll notice, because you're too focused on becoming someone you finally respect. While she's chasing distractions, you're chasing depth. While she's busy proving she's moved on, you're proving you've risen. She may never admit it, but one day she'll feel it. The shift, that the man who once begged for her attention no longer exists, and in his place is someone untouchable, not out of spite, but out of evolution, because the highest form of revenge is no revenge at all. It's reinvention. It's quiet success. It's rising so far that she has to look up just to wonder who you've become. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. Note for here, not to make her regret, but to reclaim the man you buried, to make space for someone who never valued him. This is the shadow, not the darkness that destroys you, but the darkness where your greatness is formed. Number 7, the throne. You gave her everything. Your mornings, your nights, your energy, your rhythm. You paused workouts to reply, skipped meetings to answer, delayed your goals just to be available for maybe she never had to ask. You gave your time like it was endless, and she spent it like it meant nothing. But here's the hard truth. In the world of men, time is not a resource. It is a throne, and the man who doesn't defend it loses his crown. Your schedule used to bend around her moods. You cancelled plans, rearranged your path, and made her the center of your map. But kings don't orbit. They anchor. They rule. It took her absence for you to realize what you were giving away. Time is the most sacred currency you'll ever have, and you were trading it for crumbs. No more. You reclaim your mornings. You set the tone before the world gets a say. You dominate your calendar, not with excuses, but with intention. You stop explaining why you're unavailable. You simply are. You don't negotiate with people. who never made space for you. You don't pause for those who never paused for you. Now something shifts. She doesn't just feel your absence. She feels your momentum. You're not standing still. You're building. You're executing. You're rising. And guess what? She's not invited. That access revoked, because the man who protects his time becomes unreachable, not because he hides, but because he outgrows. You don't wake up wondering what she's doing. You wake up asking, what am I conquering today? That's presence. That's power. That's the return of a king to his rightful throne. Let her wonder where you are. Let her realize the silence isn't emptiness. It's elevation. Your time is no longer up for grabs. It's not a gift to be wasted. It's an investment in legacy. Number 8. The frame. You used to bend, twist yourself just to be liked. Every message you sent, every move you made, was a subtle plea for approval. You didn't see it that way. You thought you were showing care. You thought chasing meant effort. That availability meant loyalty. That pleasing her meant she would stay. But all it really did was place her above you. She held the pen. You waited for lines to be written. The more you gave, the more the power slipped away. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you forgot who you were. That's what happens when you abandon your frame. The frame isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's the invisible structure that holds your values steady when emotions want to shake them. Stoicism teaches us, don't react. Respond. Don't follow. Lead. Don't chase. Attract. And attraction only happens when you hold your ground, when your life is so full, so focused, so built around mission and movement, that anyone who enters has to rise to your standard or fall away. You stop explaining yourself. You stop asking to be seen. You stop overgiving to prove you're worthy. You focus on your body, your finances, your inner code. You become the man who walks into a room without needing to be noticed because he knows who he is. And suddenly, everything shifts. She no longer leads. She wonders. She adjusts. Because the man who once chased her now walks without reaching. You're not playing games. You've simply stepped back into your rightful position, and the frame is firm now. You don't crave her attention. You command energy through presence. Dark psychology says, the one who cares less holds the power. But Stoicism says, the one who needs less already has it. You don't need her validation. You no longer ask, will she choose me? You ask, does she even qualify for where I'm going? You've stopped running, and in that stillness, you've become the gravity. You are the frame, and if she can't match your strength, your pace, your clarity, she doesn't get a seat at your table. Number 9. The echo. At first, she didn't notice your silence. She assumed it was a pause, a tactic, a brief moment of pride that would melt like all the times before. She thought, he'll come back. He always does. But you didn't. You didn't comment, didn't check in, didn't reach for the door. She always left half open. You disappeared, not to punish, but to protect, and that absence, it began to hum, then vibrate, then echo, because silence isn't nothing. Silence is weight, and the heavier it gets, the more it speaks. She used to feel seen every time you reached out. Now, she feels invisible, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped giving endlessly, and that's what changed everything. Women don't feel your value when you overextend. They feel it when you retract, when the access is gone, when the attention becomes sacred again. when they can't feel your energy anymore, not because you turned it off, but because you turned it inward. You're no longer broadcasting your worth, you're building it. And that calm, that detachment, that stillness, it lingers in her mind, louder than any words ever could. She starts to wonder, why did he go quiet? Does he even care anymore? Was I really that replaceable? But you're not playing games. You're just no longer playing small. You're focused, disciplined, present in your own world. And that presence, it can't be shared with someone who mishandled it. You didn't walk away to hurt her. You walked away to hear yourself again, to feel your strength, to reclaim your time, your peace, your worth. Now, she's left with the echo, the sound of a man who no longer waits to be understood, a man who leads in silence, who speaks through distance, who creates gravity without chasing. Let her feel it. Let her sit with the emptiness she once overlooked. You don't have to speak anymore. She hears everything now. Number 10. The Ascension. There was a time when she was everywhere, not physically, but in your thoughts, your senses, your silence. A song would come on, and you'd feel your chest tighten. You'd walk past a place you once visited together, and the air felt heavier. You'd wake up and check your phone, hoping for a message that never came. Every corner of your mind had her fingerprints on it. But here's what you didn't realize then. Those thoughts weren't love. They were chains disguised as memories, wrapped around your self-worth, pulling you back every time you tried to move forward. Until one day, you stopped romanticizing the pain. You stopped replaying the highlight reel and started seeing the truth. You had given too much of yourself to someone who was only ever meant to teach you a lesson, not be your destination. And from that day forward, something shifted. You didn't rise with resentment. You rose with resolve. You didn't become colder. You became clearer. You stopped asking, "Does she miss me?" and started asking, "Why did I ever forget myself for her?" You outgrew the pedestal you placed her on, not because she became smaller, but because you finally stood up straighter. She didn't shrink. You expanded. You found strength in solitude. You trained. You healed. You created. You stopped chasing closure and started creating clarity. You stopped rehearsing conversations and started rewriting your future. She became part of your past, not a chapter you wanted to reread, but a page that helped you turn into the man you were meant to become. Not bitter, not broken, just built from scratch, from pain, from purpose. And now, she might be watching from a distance. She might scroll through your life in silence, wondering how you became so unreachable. But here's the truth. You didn't become unreachable to hurt her. You became unreachable because you finally reached yourself. You're not waiting by the phone. You're not fantasizing about what could have been. You're focused. You're grounded. You're rising in silence. She may reach out. She may send a message, post something vague, try to stir the waters again. But the tides have changed. You no longer move for ripples. You answer only to storms. And even then, you don't kneel. She lost access to the man she used to manipulate. Because that man no longer exists. You're no longer her mirror, her therapist, her safe harbor. You're not a backup plan. You're not her unfinished business. You are a force, a man on his throne, a storm with direction, a flame that no longer flickers for attention. And the most powerful part, you don't hate her. You just don't need her anymore. Because this wasn't about forgetting her. It was about remembering you. This is the Ascension, the rise of the man who finally chose himself, quiet, determined, unshakable. If this message stirred something in you, If it reminded you of the man you used to be and the one you're still capable of becoming, don't let it fade into just another video. Let it be the moment you decided to stop breaking and start building, to stop chasing people who never saw your worth and start protecting the power you almost forgot you had. If you're ready for that shift, show it. Tap like, subscribe, turn on that bell, and drop a comment. Just one line about the moment this message hit you hardest, because this isn't a trend, it's a movement for men who rise in silence, who rebuild with intention, and who lead without begging to be followed. This is the Stoic spirit. And you're not lost. You're just rising. Until next time, stay steady, stay sharp, and above all, stay untouchable.